You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Weird Science Marvel Comics Podcast, Episode 9, Legacy number 509. I'm here with my man, Matt. What up, Matt?
What up, Jim?
What up? And we're going to be starting with a couple books here, but I don't know. This is a tough week. It's a tough week at Marvel. We're going to try to have fun with it, but you had a couple new number ones. You had some things leading to stuff, and pretty much you have a bunch of things that annoyed me. So we're going to kick into it. We're going to start with The Amazing Spider-Man number 37. And this is more Rek-Rap. Last issue, me and you talked about it. You actually had me slightly convinced that Rek-Rap has a place. We could kind of deal with them. Maybe the timing was off coming out of a dark story where Peter had the sins of Norman. You have all that stuff with Kraven. Then you end up finishing it with Norman actually seemingly getting the sins back. And then we have goofy Rek-Rap. So, okay, get over that. So I'm thinking, we're going to get Rek-Rap again. I think we're going to have him for one more issue anyway. But the idea, maybe now I'm used to it. Maybe this will be better. I can ease into this. This happens a lot, I think, in this Zeb Wells run because it has such a weird pacing. It has such a weird change of tones, even within issues. So, okay, let's see what gives here. And we get this issue, Amazing Spider-Man number 37, and it's gotten to the point where how can you overdo Rek-Rap in 2 issues? Because I think he's well overdue or overdone. And he feels like a side character in a sitcom. I said to you, like a Screech or an Urkel. Somebody, though, that is known for one catchphrase. Everybody goes nuts for a season or 2. But then you realize there's nothing else to this character than, did I do that? Or I didn't do it, like on The Simpsons with Bart. And you get to that point where then it becomes cringy. It's already at that point. Rek-Rap has already overstayed his welcome. I don't get it. It's because he's pushing it too hard. The humor doesn't hit. Zeb Wells, known as a funny guy, I don't know about that. I think that his stupid robot chicken humor that he came from is done. Again, almost like I didn't do that, kid. That's Zeb Wells himself. But this is Amazing Spider-Man number 37, written by Zeb Wells, art by Ed McGuinness, which is really good. Emilio Laiso on interlude art, which is okay. Mark Farmer, Wade Von Grauberger, Ed McGuinness on inks, Marcelo Menez, and Eric Arcinego on colors, CC's Joe Caramagna on letters. Now, you said last issue that they gave you that dark cover to try to fool you because then you go in with Rek-Rap, and it wasn't that dark. In this, you do have Gang War stamped on the deal. There is an interlude type deal that's kind of a prelude setting up some things, but it's only a couple pages. You don't really need to read them because anything that would end up happening, and only one thing is revealed, but it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. Let's see what goes on. I'm sure it'll be reiterated once Gang War starts, but in the meantime, you get a lot of Rek-Rap. And by the end, I think Peter is a jerk. I think Rek-Rap is this weird kind of back and forth. We said Rek-Rap is played off as like, hey, he's a goofy Spider-Man with a heart of gold. He means well, but he's not dumb, though. No. And me and you were talking. You even had to say to me, because at points, he knows things, but then for a joke, he doesn't know things later, but he doesn't know the most basic things that you would know. But then some of his lines end up showing you that he knows more. So
high weird, intelligence, I think. He has high, but he doesn't know what a building is.
No, he has no idea what a building is, and doesn't even have the deal to say, the room on top of the building. He's like, the triangle thing. Then Peter has to make things work. But by the end, Peter ditches him completely.
He's just fed up
in a way that seems bad, but
cruel.
You start off, and we have that repossessor demon. Now it's in its kind of human-esque form here. And Jason had some things in our Slack chat, but we kind of would figure this out anyway. It's the guy from the beginning of the series that ended up sitting on the stoop, always waiting to catch Peter so he can say, hey, you owe this, you owe that. Now he seems like he's repossessing demons for Limbo. And it kind of makes sense in the way that we never really found out what this guy, we thought it must have been money you had the play where Aunt May almost lost the house, and Peter, this is all from the beginning when he ended up exploding York, Pennsylvania, which I think is a plus. But in the meantime, also, he had all these bills. Everybody hated him. This guy was just there. And then he got eaten in dark web without really ever knowing anything about this guy. He was just kind of there.
It's like, oh, that's that guy. Oh, he's dead now. Okay,
and
move
people
on.
laughed. I laughed when it happened.
I did too.
They did not really know what to do with this guy, but you had to get rid of him. So he got eaten in dark web. Well, it looks like maybe after he got eaten, Madeline Pryor kind of said, well, now that you're here, I could use your skill set. You are a guy who goes and collects things, the repossess. I'll turn you into a demon that goes out and grabs these other demons that escape. It makes some sense. I mean, in a weird way. But it really is kind of an ambiguous thing. And he's here, but he still seems obsessed with collecting whatever from Peter. So he's there in the apartment. He's looking at a picture of Peter and Randy. And then, voila, Randy's at the door. Hey, Peter, I can't get a hold of you. I hear you in there. And this repossessor says, okay, I can take Randy as collateral, which he does. He ends up grabbing him and seemingly you would think take him into limbo the way he does all these demons. So in that, there is something at stake for Peter then to go on. Now, I don't know that we needed that because just the idea where it seemed like last issue when this repossessor came and it's awful, demon guys, when it was going to take Rek-Rap, please don't let it take me home. I don't want to go home. And it felt like what Rek-Rap was saying to Peter is, it's awful there. They treat me like crap. And you could sit there and again, people could argue about the intelligence level of Rek-Rap, but Rek-Rap is, like I said, a heart of gold. He might be annoying, but he's kind of a nice guy who wants to do well. Might not do well in what is essentially prison.
No, not at all. Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is like a nice guy who all of a sudden he's in prison and there's bad people there. Plus, you're also playing that idea. If he goes back to Limbo, these people in Limbo, say Octoball, Scorpion, which we see here, they're not going to really be so happy with him. It's basically the idea of a cop getting put in jail. They're in big trouble, especially because they put a lot of people away. So the idea that he didn't want to go back to Limbo, it seemed pretty cut and dry to me. It's because it's an awful place and I don't want to go there. But in this, Peter keeps like, why don't you want to go home? That's the mystery. I'm like, really? Because by the end then, as it goes through here, and pretty much what you're going to get a lot of is Rek-Rap story adventure time. I still think if you're going to do this, do it in one of those Infinity comics on the app, maybe collect it later because it's just taking up space for no reason because you end up as he is there fighting. And this is the thing. He's in a tale. The mystery of the time I got in a fight with Kraken the Hunter a few weeks ago and something weird happened. What weird happened is that Kraken, again, he doesn't know how things go. And he's like, I'm going to marry you alive. You're going to marry me. You're supposed to bury me. Bury you? I'm not a sadist. Well, you're not going to be Mr. Rap. That's it. That like, you sit there and read that and you're like,
odd. I had to read it a few times. I'm like, am I missing something
what
here?
the hell's going on here? What are you doing? Why are we playing these games? Like, you're heading into a gang war. This is sandwiched in between a big crossover event and Norman Osborn getting his sins back after Peter almost killed a bunch of people and did kill a bunch of people. And this is what's in between. And the only thing I can think of is that you have a timing issue. The other books involve, say, a Miles, that sort of thing that will cross over. They need a couple issues to tie up things, set up a couple things to get into gang war. But this really feels like you're missing the boat here. You don't understand the lay of the land, but it is like, I think that Zeb Wells has this stupid trigger that he has to tell stupid jokes, and he's got like a quota of them. Maybe it's in his contract. He's like, listen, I have to tell at least 10 eye-rolling jokes every 3 issues, and I haven't been able to do that, even though he tries to mix them in. He tries to mix up. Things get real dark, and he'll throw a joke in. I said, he is the guy at a funeral that's joking around and everybody's annoyed with, but he thinks he's the funniest guy ever.
You think he's like Steven Spielberg? I'll make one movie for them and one movie for me?
That's what it is. He's like, I'll do one issue with one joke, but now this is my deal with the jokes, and it's bad. And it starts to be, like I said, an Urkel, that sort of situation of, ooh, you don't really need this. It's not really hitting like you think it is. Let's move on.
It's wanging time. What is that? He says, it's wanging time. Is that his catchphrase?
I'm married with 5 kids. I know what wanging time is. So I don't know recently. Like, that's his catchphrase. Like, that's what, I mean, can you imagine? Zeb Wells is probably writing this, and he's got to watch himself because he's laughing so hard that he starts crying, and it's getting on his, tablet. He might ruin it. It's terrible. So you end up where this whole play is going on. He runs into this repossessor, and this is how it leads into what he's telling Peter. He ends up following the repossessor, sees that he grabs this guy, sees that he grabs that guy, and he keeps going to
People Box.
And then takes him to the People Box. And Peter's like, you mean a building, a house? Yeah. And then the triangle thing on top of the People Box. Oh, you mean an attic? I'm like, I wouldn't have gotten that. But
no, I wouldn't have either.
In this issue, you're trying to play that jokey thing like that. But at one point, you have Rek-Rap talk like smarter than Peter in a way where he's like, elementary, dear Pete, man. And it's kind of a funny joke, but it shows you that Rek-Rap isn't dumb and he would know a building. Why are you saying, why is that your joke? The People Box. I'm waiting for him to be like, oh, this horseless carriage. What are you doing? But then,
well, it's a different. I mean, if Rek-Rap is intentionally saying it wrong, that's one thing. But I don't think he is in this case. I think he just doesn't know what a building is.
In Queens, there's we know about this. We actually already saw the attic, and it's where this repossessor goes back, and then there's a flash of light. You would guess that when he consumes the things, maybe he has to go back here. This is where the portal, whatever the thing may be. But you end up, as they're doing this, Peter and Rek-Rap are talking, and Norman busts in because they're at Oscorp, and he's like, what are you doing here with this thing? Oh, this is my buddy Rek-Rap. He's no harm. He's fine. I got to figure things out. You better get him out of here before I lose my company. And then you have Rek-Rap's like, hey, how you doing, buddy? And then starts making jokes. Hey, come on into the hot bath of a mystery. The water's fine. I guess you don't want to be in the bath. And I'm like, you're annoying. You were so annoying. Norman's just like, get this thing away from me. I don't want it around. Peter, you know that. And I'm like, really? The amount of things that Norman and Peter have been doing up until this point, this is not on the top of the list, right? And it feels like, it just doesn't feel like Norman. Any Norman that we've seen coming in, is this supposed to be like, ooh, he's got his sins in, because it didn't even seem like that.
He just seems like he's worrying about his business, and that's it.
Yeah, he seems like he comes in and he's just like, Mr. Manager, you better get out of here before I get in trouble. I'm like, okay, that didn't play out well. And I think, again, if you're going to be the deal, I'll go old school. This is where, oh, man, we have to have the Fonz show up. Fonzie comes in, everybody's, oh, Fonz, yeah, and then he leaves because you just need an appearance, and he does that. So you have Urkel, you have the Fonz. But when is anything in this going to be cool? Because it's not. Because then you end up where, we have to have an interlude with the whole gang war. And that's where you see Hammerhead, and he's like, hey, we're going to get this set up in the big plays. Man, when people find out that you ended up killing Count Nefaria's daughter, there's going to be problems. And then Count Nefaria just shows up and says, hey, what if they didn't find out that it was ordered by me? I ordered Madame Mask's assassination. Ha ha, because I'm Count Nefaria, and it's going to be a gang war, bitches. And then he leaves. It's done.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say 100% Madame Mask is not dead.
She's probably in limbo, in the limbo of limbo.
She is not dead. They would be showing that. There's a major character way bigger than Count Nefaria is.
Each little interlude and the way that this is kind of being set up, I'm like, I don't need another dark web. If I see one sentient mailbox, I am going to lose it. I don't need that anymore. I'm done. So you end up where, all right, well, the interlude over. Gang war, everybody. So we then go back to Peter and Rek-Rap trying to figure out what they're going to do. Some of the jokes here are, it's a mystery, so we got to dress up as detectives, but Peter doesn't want to do that, so it really falls flat. And then he says, listen, there is no mystery. You're a jerk. And you should go home. You are trying to use me. And just says that repossessor, he gets the demons and sends them back to limbo. and I think that you're nonsense. So sayonara, leaves him. He just leaves. He completely ditched Rek-Rap, and right after he does, the repossessor shows up and says, "You're coming home. It's all over now." He's done. He's getting sent to what he says.
He just completely abandons Rek-Rap.
Yep, just completely abandons him. Peter goes back to his apartment, and I love where he goes in. He's like, man, I didn't leave my picture on the floor like that, broken, and the door. Like, he is so nonchalant about the idea that his apartment is
completely trashed. Completely trashed. It's
destroyed. The door and all of the plaster, it's all off. It's all in a
thousands of dollars in damage.
He goes, I didn't leave my door like that. What do you mean? It's thousands of pieces?
I don't even see a door.
There's no door. Hey, Randy's phone. Oh no. And you're like, what the hell is going on? And then the repossessed, because he says, I got to go find Randy. He's making these jumps to conclusions, assumptions that, oh my God, I got to go to this Queen's attic that Rek-Rap said. Like, the idea, don't know what happened, but he goes there. The repossessor comes in and says, oh, I was hoping you would come. Hey, I'm going to get what I came for. Randy Robertson, he's just collateral. You owe me a great debt. I turn into a monster and then just eats Spider-Man. Yeah. And he's like, wait, oh no. And now it seems like the thing is, in this point, this is just going to help. He has to free probably Randy in limbo of limbo.
And Rek-Rap too, yeah.
It's pretty much just, I'm going to head there and save him. Right?
Because it just eats you and craps you out in limbo or wherever fake limbo this is. Yeah, because Madeline Pryor was telling him, like, your mission is to get Rek-Rap. You don't be messing with Spider-Man, but this guy's got his own...
He's on a side hustle.
Side mission, yeah.
Of his deal because this is something that he's taken over. Like, I guess the play would be, all right, you shouldn't be remembering a lot of your past life, so you don't have any problems. You're a repossessor. That's what you do. You're good for it. But then again, you're hinging on that he's good at the repossessor. Really, the idea that he's good at it, he sat on the stairs in front of Peter, legitimately did not ever get his job done. He was there. He completely failed. Mm-hmm. And now he's the big limbo of limbo repossessor. And there goes Peter. And at the end, I'm like, why am I reading this? Why is this even a thing? Because it's nonsense. And again, last issue, I could say to you, yeah, they're trying to have fun. Zeb Wells wants to have fun with this Rek-Rap. Okay. But 2 issues, I think that you'd agree, it's already too much. There's nothing here to even warrant 2 issues, let alone that we have to continue and try to save everybody and see what happens with Rek-Rap. It's just not a developed character. The character's there for pretty much a one kind of deal, one trick pony, and it's already, overstated steel. What would you give this?
Yeah, I'll give this one a 5.5.
I'm giving it a 4. I like the art.
Yeah, there's some great Spider-Man moments. He's definitely wasted. He's a little cartoony. It might just be the colors, but
it works though for Rek-Rap, but it still looks really good.
Yeah, I mean, I just appreciate a grounded Spider-Man story. Not
Peter doesn't act right. Norman acts like a jerk. I mean, nobody is. And then you have this Emilio Laso on the interlude art, which is okay, except Hammerhead. Jesus criminy, that head. You could land a plane on that.
Yeah, well, he puts his hand all over that head, too.
You could also put a Thanksgiving dinner on there. and
one thing about Rek-Rap, too, I think a big miss, and it maybe should have been handled already, but his costume, it's got to be something different. Just it can't be Spider-Man's outfit. Give him something else. I don't know.
It just looks like a roided out Spider-Man.
And Spider-Man would not be cool with him running around with that outfit on. No way. I can tell you right now, I never saw one episode of Robot Chicken.
Yeah,
and I never will.
That was his thing, so it's okay. It had its time, and some things are, you get a chuckle out of it. But again, I think that a lot of people now would maybe agree. Robot Chicken's another one of those things that you got to take it in short bursts. You can't marathon 7 seasons of Robot Chicken. It'll drive you nuts because it's kind of repeats the kind of humor and the thing. So that's kind of the deal with Zeb Wells. You got to take it. Rek-Rap showing up in a half an issue. I said an Infinity comic maybe or a one-shot. That's kind of cool. You can kind of set that up. When you have to extend it, there's just not enough with the character to actually get anything out of it. So there you go. We don't like fun.
No, we're anti-fun.
We are misery incarnate, I believe. But that's then. I really hope, but now I'm worried that this whole gang war, because now we're going to get Cody Ziegler involved. I mean, this
really?
thing is just, he's involved. So it's just going to go completely off the rails. And I'm worried about that because I want to like this book.
Is that because Miles is involved?
Yeah. Every time I like one thing about it, then there's like 3 other things that show up that drive me nuts. But
MC Scat Cat, right?
Speaking of that, well, we're going to go off to another book here. It's a new number 1. And here it is, Thanos number 1. I know that you've been waiting with bated breath for this, Matt. And we'll see if this has enough Thanos to please you or maybe anybody, but it is.
He's on the cover.
He's off the cover. He's in a couple panels. Christopher Cantwell writing, art by Luca Pizzari, colors by Ruth Redman, VC's Corey Petit on letters. I usually don't read the blurbs, but I'm going to read this one because I think it ends up pointing out the one thing that's going on in this issue. It says, Thanos is called the Mad Titan, an eternal and immense strength, intellect, ambition, and bloodthirst. Once upon a time, he sought the heart of the goddess Death and used the Infinity Gauntlet to erase half the universe's population to win her love. But the pair had split by the time Thanos battled the Guardians of the Galaxy, who shot him into a black hole. Thanos has been missing and presumed dead ever since until now. Just think of the big things that they're talking about there. Guardians of the Galaxy shooting him into a black hole. You got the Infinity Gauntlet mentioned. Really what you need to really center on is the goddess Death. Because when you get into this issue, Christopher Cantwell is doing something that I think he and may end up being kind of clever. The problem is in the lay of the land and the idea of monthly comics, it doesn't work very well. This is a cold open that seems to be giving you more the idea that Death has kind of shown up in Fresno in the United States on planet Earth. Doesn't really realize that, it seems, but is there for Thanos to go after. And because of that, we center on this character, Roberta. And by the time you get done, most people are going to be shaking their heads about what the heck they just read because there's barely Thanos in it. And you really center on things like a Bachelor-type reality show and working at a pharmacy. And that's it. I mean, that is basically the gist of this first deal to set up what me and you both think is death on Earth and Thanos being obsessed to go and get her. But you end in a way where anybody coming into this thinking, man, I want to see, I haven't really read a lot of Thanos recently, didn't read Eternal stuff. Oh my goodness, I want to check out Thanos. I think that they will just not know what's happening here. And I say what's happening. I'm not talking about page to page, panel to panel. I'm talking about what's happening. Where the hell is Thanos? Because he shows up at the end along with a bunch of other characters. But the big play here is this character, Roberta. And I'm like, you start out, and I'm not a fan of Christopher Cantwell. I think that he is nonsense. He tries to be too clever. He tries to do these fancy stuff. I'm telling you right now, if you even like Christopher Cantwell, wait for the trade. I don't see this as already being something to read month to month.
It'll be very hard.
Doing this weird, slow, odd burn. But you start out in Fresno, R.I.P.
R.I.P. Exactly.
So you end up where you get this girl. Like you're waiting for Thanos, and what you get is a goth girl who's thinking about this, like I said, like a bachelorette type reality show that we have to know is going on in Fiji. And we have to find out that this one contestant who was, a pretty good baseball player, also loved the Return of the Jedi, was a little worried that they weren't going to get the rose at the end. I will admit to, if I say anything wrong about like a Bachelor, I've never seen the show. I haven't. My wife even is something that would be something in her wheelhouse. I don't think she's ever watched it either. So you end up, maybe they like smash glasses into like a fireplace. So you end up where she's thinking, last night I was watching this and this guy, he ended up wanting to get an in with the girl. So went to one of her friends. Oh, she likes sensitive guys. So then you go, and this takes page after page after narration after nonsense. And then
5 pages.
Yeah, in 5 pages. And it's not even the idea. If you're going to do it, I don't know why or how, whatnot, but maybe show us the show, not show us whisper down the lane through Roberta, who's kind of heading off to work at a pharmacy, thinking about this stupid show. It almost feels like it's one of those like podcaster videos, like an after show deal. I'm like, I don't need this.
Those shows are the worst. I hate those shows.
I'm hijacked. I don't want to deal with this. So he ends up where he comes up with an idea. Hey, most people think I tell them my first memory is Return of the Jedi. But really, and that's just what kind of cred are you trying to get there? So, but really, it was when my grandfather died and my mom took me to the dead body that was yellow and icky and I had to kiss it. The end. And the guy didn't win. That's the worst of it, too. I'm like,
she was creeped out, man, and rejected him.
Yeah, I was creeped out. Also, so you end up with this girl. And she goes to work, like I said, like a goth look.
She's making small talk with the other employees.
Yeah, and going in there's a rat that died. And again, there's things with death. And she even
what is she doing with that rat?
She puts it in her pocket.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Maybe she's going to make a wallet out of it. I don't know. I'm assuming she's going to bring it back to life. She also hangs out in a graveyard. There's so many things.
That's her gravestone, though, I think.
Yeah.
Marie Collins.
When you go through all this, he's being subtle, but it's all you're getting. So it ends up being the idea, like I said, a slow burn, odd burn. I feel burned. I don't know.
She still has that rat on her in a couch when she's falling asleep. That rat is with her.
Hanging out with the dead rat. She goes then to this, like you said, she goes to a graveyard, and there's a gravestone there, and it has this name, Maria. And that's not her name. We have her name, Roberta. So at that point, you're starting to think like, okay, is she like, I don't know. Is she undercover? Has she changed her name? But then as things go, you kind of realize this must be death. But again, is this a Thanos book or a death book? I don't get it. So you have all this play. This is going to be very quick, by the way. You have this whole deal where, she's there. She falls asleep. She wakes up because she sees Black Hole and the teeth of Thanos. That's the other bit of connection. And as she's there the next day working at the pharmacy, and she doesn't seem to be that into her job, right? She ends up like, oh my God, what just happened? A spaceship just shows up at Earth and starts to suck, in a non-sexy way, Fresno out of Earth. And it's like taking it. And then Thanos does finally show up and says, hey, everybody, I'm only here for Roberta. I need her. Everybody else, you're chaff and you're going to go down. In the meantime, some ladies at the pharmacy and recognizes Roberta as her daughter, Maria, but that's not it. And you go and she seems to know, but not know. And then I'm sitting there like, what the heck am I reading here?
It's crazy. Just the idea of Thanos knowing Fresno is just insane.
Yeah.
Hear me, Fresno. Like, come on.
He's like, thank God it wasn't Cleveland. He's so happy she was in Fresno and not
I've never
Detroit.
met a person that could point out Fresno on a map, let alone Thanos. Come on, that's crazy.
I think Tanya has relatives in Fresno, but they're not so nice. So I'm glad. Like, I was happy when this happened, Fresno. So as all this, everything's just kind of getting thrown at you. And because you're waiting for Thanos, because you're going into a Thanos book, I think that you're never really on proper footing. You kind of are confused by about the 10th page. In my mind, you're like, what the hell is this? I thought the idea of checking page count is a thing, right? Mm-hmm. How about checking the cover to make sure you're reading the right comic? Like, geez. So when Thanos finally shows up and he's, I only need this Roberta, then this girl's mother, possibly from past life, whatever, recognizes her. She tells her to go drive off. Then she ends up falling down. And then Thanos looks like he's going to get her. But then you get all of a sudden over the intercom in a jokey way. Like, this is just imagine. Fresno is being displaced.
It's now in space because they pulled it up into space.
You have this girl who maybe people know, maybe people don't, but it seems to be death. But even so, it's just this girl that Thanos has announced to everybody, I don't care about anybody but this girl. You can't think right away that is something good. You would maybe think that he's going to kill. You wouldn't know. So instead of, say, Iron Man and Emma Frost and Reed Richards and Doctor Strange and Blue Marvel, instead of them going and grabbing her and protecting her, they have to play games. Tony gets over the intercom, which I don't see how it works.
Where's the electricity?
And says, Miss Marshall, we mean you no harm. Please come to the front desk. Why are you playing games? even the idea, they know Thanos is there. Clean up an aisle everywhere.
Yep.
Clean up in Fresno. And so she like runs up and goes, oh my God, things that are happening here. And Christopher Cantwell seems to think that he has to be funny. And I would have crapped my pants and probably jumped off the side of the cliff of what was Fresno. The big thing that she's all surprised, you're Iron Man. Like, no, what's going on here? Blue Marble isn't the most well-known, and he's like, you probably don't know me. And she's like, no, I know you. You're Adam Brashear.
She knows everything about him.
Okay. And then, hey, Dr. Strange, hey, you, it's you. And all of a sudden, it's just, we got to protect you from Thanos. You try to survive the end. I'm like, I don't know if I survived this. This was odd. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's pretty bad just because of how odd it is. And
yeah,
you said this would be like a 3-minute intro into a full movie. And you feel by the end, you got to do more with your main character in the first issue so people are on board. I mean, I guess if you read this first, you're going to maybe say, well, that was bull crap, but I guess I'll tune in next time to see Thanos at least. But that's not good. Like, you want to have a cliffhanger and you want to have an ending that it's positive. Like, oh my God, I got to see the next issue. In this, you're like, I don't know what the hell I just read, so
Yeah, like, I would say that, like, death in general as a character is not the easiest thing to write, I think. And then out of context death of just with no frame of reference is basically impossible. And this, you didn't do a good job.
The thing about death in the things that me and you have even done, you know, Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, Infinity Gauntlet, yeah.
What we like about death isn't the actual, and some people might enjoy the character death, but what we like more is, you know, Thanos and how he acts around
Thanos with death.
Where this guy is like the biggest, baddest thing, but he'll do anything for death. And death kind of, you know, treats him like crap at points and whatnot. So all that is, but that's them combined, and it's more through Thanos.
Yeah,
I understand. We'll probably get to that. But in a first issue, you can't do it like this. And overall, hey, what was that Thanos issue like? Was it cool? It was about this girl, Roberta, who's like this goth girl working at a pharmacy, and then Fresno gets pulled up into space, and then
the Avengers are there, kind of.
Like this new Illuminati Avengers type deal. They're there. The person will be looking at you like, I don't think you understand things. Like, it can't be that. And then they read it and like, you're 100% right. I actually, when we started this, I was going to say, before we start, please, everything that we say is actually what's going on in the book, because it almost feels like we're punking people by saying it's bad. It's bad in that way of, what the hell is this?
I really do like that new Iron Man armor. You never get to see it even in Iron Man, so it's cool to actually see it here, which to me, that's the only shining spot in this whole thing. I would give this a flat 5.
Doctor Strange, he's just doing little magic tricks with light bulbs.
What's he doing with those light bulbs?
She's like, look at me. I'm Chris Angel. I'm mind freaking your ass. I have no idea.
And Blue Marvel, I like him, but where's he coming from?
I don't know. Where's everything coming from? So ridiculous. I'm a 3. 3 out of 10. This could change, though. It's just a very misplaced idea of a first issue. There's other people who will have been following all the Thanos stuff. Oh my God, I have to see what happened. And they get to this and they get a pharmacy with a goth girl who might have died, and her mom sees her. She's got a dead rat in her pocket. It's like, is that a dead rat in your pocket, or is this a bullcrap issue? She's happy to see us, but
like, how did Thanos get the ship? How did he get out of the black hole?
I don't know.
And all this stuff. Maybe that's next issue. I don't know.
Maybe we'll see. I don't know. We'll have to keep following it just to laugh, but that is it. That is it for this. But oh my goodness. Thanks for joining me once again. My man, Matt, we're going to go off now, and I don't know if it gets any better because we're going off to talk about the new Punisher book right about now. And I'm here with my man, Zach. What up, Zach?
What's up, Jim?
What up? And we have another new #1. This is Punisher #1. A lot of people ended up, talking about this play where at one point they had kind of a guessing game. Oh my God, who is going to be this new Punisher? And they ended up having like a shadowy figure, almost like it was a character you had to unlock in a fighting game. And people were guessing, and then suddenly they announced it. It's Joe Garrison, ex-SHIELD agent. Yeah, everybody. Who? Like, what? Like, what's going on? And then they explained it and thought, well, that was a little bit of a fun game that you couldn't play along with. And when you get into this issue, kind of continues with that because this issue stinks. It's not very good. Just give us Frank Castle, please. My big problem is if you're not going to have Frank Castle and you introduce a new Punisher, give me something different so that I can say, okay, well, I kind of like Frank, but I could dig this guy. Don't redo Frank Castle with a new guy.
That's why I wanted to read it.
I even thought at one point there was going to be a little twist that I'll even tell you what it is now, that I thought that all of what was going on, we thought it was going one way, but this guy is so out of his mind that he was recreating the origin of Frank himself to become that, but it's not that. That might be a little interesting. This is not good. It's cliche. It is just boring, but it's written by David Pepose, and
that's why.
I've read a couple things. I know people like that Savage Avengers meme. You did not. And the Moon Knight City of the Dead is just awful. That's a bad series. Me and Gabe will finish that up next issue. I think is the last issue. Not very good. Art by Dave Wachter.
I do like Dave Wachter. I like Dave Wachter. He did pretty good on Planet of the Apes.
You go into this. Oh man, it's already an uphill battle. You're going to have somebody not Frank being the Punisher. And the play throughout this bunch of years now is that you can't have Frank Castle because bad people in the mind of Marvel. I'm not going to make any judgments here, but they decided bad people have commandeered the Punisher symbol. We can't have the Punisher going out and killing people. Also, the killing, it's a little over the top, all that. So I'm wondering, okay, what is this guy going to do? What is Joe Garrison going to do? And when he goes in, he's just blasting. He is a rootin' shooting machine.
He just started blasting.
He is just blasting in this. And so when you get to that, I'm like, all right, well, I kind of want Frank Castle then. Give me Frank. I know that how that went with all the stuff tied in with Daredevil, Jason Aaron stuff. I don't care. I'm reading this and I just want Frank Castle. So you start off and you end up where a building has been blown up. You see Garrison on the deal, and there's a couple detectives, a bunch of people milling about. And again, I don't know who these characters are. I want the Punisher. And you get in here and what's happening? The book is punishing me. I have to go through this. I'm going to get angry about this because I got so bored with it. But you go in and these detectives, hey there, Detective Ward. How are things going? Pretty good. How are you? Not bad myself. Let's walk into the house. I'm like, why are we wasting any bit of time? And then you go in and there's a bunch of people. There's obviously people who are dead. They're trying to figure this out. The one guy says, oh man, looks like somebody ended up blowing up the building. Hey, don't you jump to conclusions, pal. I got Detective Linus here. No assumption. And he's like, let me look. Looks like somebody blown up the building. This whole building is blown up. There's a wall that's standing there like, maybe something's in the wall. They look, oh, an unexploded bomb. Didn't you think that was going to now explode and these guys are dead? Why introduce this to do nothing with it? They end up having this bomb and they go, get the bomb squad. The end. What? And then even that, you said, no assumptions. They end up digging up a body of the wife, the two kids, but they can't find the body of the husband. So like, he must have done it. It's Joe Garrison, who just happens to be the new Punisher.
Dun, dun, dun.
In the meantime, while that's going on, Joe, he already knows Punisher's going to go off, and guess what he's going to do? He's going to punish the guy who blew the building up and killed his family. We're introduced to it so quick. There's no connection to Joe Garrison, his family, these detectives, no at all. So when you get to it and you find out, okay, I'm doing the math. Wife dead, a girl and a boy dead. Oh, it's just Frank Castle Punisher done again, but I have no connection. So you end up at the Black Dragon Bar. You start with the over-narration of this Joe Garrison. One thing he likes to do is chit-chat of the mind. He's just boring. He gives you the scene, but he kind of sometimes oversteps the art at points, and it's just cliche action movie. You know, bang, bang, I'm going to get you. Even has some crazy, catchphrases or one-liners, but they don't play out.
Yeah, it's stupid shit. Like, just like there's one where it's like, we're going to make you eat those words, Punisher. And he's like, eat this, starts shooting the gun. And it's like.
So this bar, you have this guy. And again, we don't know that this is the guy who blew up the deal, but you kind of can figure it out as it goes. But you have this play of, you see a hand pull out one power cord out of the wall socket. everything in the bar seems to go off. Like everything is there.
The entire lights, everything. Like just
this is
everything.
like the classic. You have 800 things plugged into one strip, and this guy, he pulls the strip. Oh no, it's dark, and now we're just gonna get stupid trash talk. At one point, they're like, "What are you gonna do?" Say, "We got 8 people, 8 against 1." He's like, "You mean you have 8 for now?" All right. Then he starts blasting. And when you're doing that, you even cut then a bit to the detectives, just to ruin the pacing a little more. And so with that, the Sokovian, he grabs the suitcase and runs off as he's getting shot. He gets away. In the meantime, these guys with the devil mask, they just start attacking Joe, and he's blocking them with his armor. He has his chest. Now, his chest plate, everybody's seen it probably by now. It looks like the Punisher logo, but it looks like it's lit.
Yeah, it glows. Because that was supposed to be the visual when he came in the door after he turned off all the lights or whatever. It was just like a glowing skull.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like the Punisher logo, just a different version of it. And I said lit. I don't mean like how the kids say it down at the roller skating rink. You end up where...
It is not lit, Jim. It is not.
He just fights through. He ends up breaking a guy's sword and runs him through. And then the big line, because there's this big dude. And they're in a bar. So they're getting all this alcohol on him and whatever. And the guy says, "Oh, I wield the power of man's darkest shadows." And then you have this joke here. "Maybe, but you're still soaked in rum. And I'm the one with the lighter." I'm like, really? So here is the trash talk. This is the action movie talk here that David Popos thinks is pretty cool. It's not, because this is far from a Sylvester Stallone saying, "You're the disease and I'm the cure." See, that's cool. This is just mentioning, hey, by the way, you just got soaked in rum and I happen to have a lighter. I mean, he's actually just saying the actual thing going on. No metaphor, no cleverness. And it really does give you the microcosm of this book. This Punisher #1 is trying to be an 80s, 90s action movie, but it's direct to video. That's all this is. Frank Castle, that's a blockbuster. That's in the theater. This is direct-to-video nonsense that you avoid. Like, this is what I'm reading? Please. Oh, my goodness. And he sets them on fire. So, again, very violent. And he just walks away from people burning. But you get that visual of what looks like the Punisher logo. So he goes back to this safe house, this SHIELD safe house. He says there's a bunch in New York. Okay. And he has this gadget gal, AAA. Don't know her, don't know Punisher, Joe Garrison either. And they start having quips and they start having little one-liners with each other, but it doesn't play out well because we don't know the characters. There's no setup of, oh man, she always does that, or oh man, he's always joking about that. We don't know them. So at one point it says, "That's why they call me AAA. Oh, I thought that was because it was your
armor and analysis.
And then, no, aiding and abetting. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I thought it was like the car service. Like, oh, I'm here to help. Like, she's basically just the micro. Punisher had micro. This is Joe Garrison's micro.
The same. And while they're doing that, they're watching the news. And so they're like, and you end up, oh man, you're pretty famous. And at first, the famous bit is because of his, looks like the Punisher's back. And you end up where Joe Garrison goes, oh man, they think I'm the Punisher because of my armor. I'm like, really? You didn't think that looked anything like the Punisher? And now
S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't hire him for his smarts.
The real story here is that the police are saying that he's the main suspect in the killing of his family. Again, I hate to say it, but I don't care because I don't know the family, and it's just too much of a generic version of Frank Castle.
We get one little flashback during the story.
You get that quick, oh man, I'm so glad. Put the life behind you, but the life never gets put behind you. We know that. So all in all with this, oh man, the Sokovian got away. Now, he wants to kill this guy because the guy blew up his family. He says that, man, I thought I was undercover. Nobody knew, but then this guy found out and blew up. We don't really know why.
At one point, he's like, oh, I also want to, before I kill him, find out who hired him, because apparently he's like a hired bomber or whatever.
Again, we don't really know. He doesn't wait. Joe says, it sucks. I don't know where he is. So then AAA goes, oh, I actually had already set up, without telling you already, by the way, that your bullets are tracer bullets. They're trackers. This is like after the fact writing, it seems. Like the idea, oh crap, We got to do something, so we'll do that.
There was one little panel where they showed the suitcase get shot, but it's very
He wasn't shooting the case to track it because he had no idea.
He was just trying to shoot at the Sokovian.
And he goes off to follow the case, even though when they get to a spot, he goes in the subway and they can't track it. What tracker is this? It's lame. So you say it costs a lot. They didn't pay enough. But all this then leads, I mean, this book just has things happen. Because then the Sokovian who just bombed, and you think he probably got some money to bomb I don't even want to call him the Punisher if they would think he's that at this point, but ex-SHIELD agent Joe Garrison's house, kill his family. Now the guy's also running a side hustle where he's going to Mr. Hyde and selling mutant growth hormone. That's why he had the case. I'm like, what is this? What is this guy? Like a jack of all trades? I don't know this guy, so I'm just saying he's a jack off instead of a jack of all trades, master of whatever. Because he's there all of a sudden. Oh man, blew up that guy. I'm going to retire soon, but I got to sell this growth hormone. I'm surprised Barry Bonds wasn't down there getting it. That's for John Wayne. So you end up where even that you're going to play this game where, oh, Dr. Zabo, it's Mr. Hyde. We know it. Mr. Hyde's already Mr. Hyde, but here he is injecting himself with mutant growth hormone. He's got all this stuff going on. They're getting this from this Sokovian wall. Joe Garrison thinks of his family that we have no connection to. And then in the play of when the times get, slow, when people aren't talking, I often go back and think about that exploding building that happened 3 hours ago. So he goes and he goes down into the subway. And there's the deal. Hey, he went in the subway and we lost track where Punisher goes down. Joe Garrison goes down into the subway.
AAA hacks the
surveillance.
And then they see him go into one of those service tunnels. And then he goes down there. And then he just, he's walking. He hears the subway train going overhead. And he's like, it's weird. Some part of this wall over here to my right, the acoustics are different than the rest of the walls. That must mean there's a false wall.
That's the thing. There's no reason for this to be a false wall even. It looks like they're just in a side room. So he ends up like, so he puts an explosive, blows it up, and there's Mr. Hyde and his guys.
He's like, you've saved us the trouble of finding you, Mr. Punisher, sir.
You were just down there with your hormones. So he ends up then injecting himself, becomes Mr. Hyde. He's going to attack, but instead of it doing anything, Joe Garrison ends up grabbing that suitcase of the mutant growth hormone and shoves it all into Mr. Hyde's mouth and says, he'll probably OD on that. I'm out of here. And then runs. In the meantime, he gets punched and stuff by Mr. Hyde, but he punches the case at one point. He's like, thank God that case saved. The way that was punched into him, his innards are done. But he's like,
his ribs are broken.
Done.
He's done. Concussion protocol.
Looks like
Mr.
Hyde might be dead, but probably not. Because he's Mr. Hyde.
I don't think anybody will miss him.
I will also say at points, Joe Garrison, when you get close up, he looks a little like Tom Cruise, which completely makes sense here because the way things just kind of happen, this is like mission improbable. They end up on set. The Sokovian, which I forgot to mention his name is Sergei Fedorov, Hall of Fame hockey player, Detroit Red Wing, and maybe they're punishing him here for dating / maybe marrying Anna Kournikova back in the day. He ends up grabbing a hostage, and they're at the subway platform, but they're on separate sides. There's a subway car coming, and even in this, the Sokovian's like, hey, I'm going to hold this lady here, and you're not going to do anything, and we're going to get on this subway car, and you're not going to do anything. And he's like, screw that. So the train's going between them, and he just takes a shot between the train right through the forehead. He's dead.
Yeah, but it has to be a fatal shot. He wanted to capture him alive, but it's like, I got no choice. I got to do a headshot. That's the only way to save this lady.
He kills this guy, and that's it. That's the end.
Yeah, but it ends with like the most eye-rolling narration because he's just like, well, now that he's been punished, I'm going to be here to be punished for the rest of time because I know I'm not going to find who hired the killer. And it's just like, he will. Yeah, he will.
I don't care. I don't know you. This felt like I ended up where I'm at the bus station and some jerk-off thinks he's Forrest Gump and he's going to tell me his whole life story. I don't care. I don't have any connection to you. Like the guy's like, yep, and then they blew up my family, and then I went and shot this guy. I'm like, I really don't care what you're saying. I have no connection with you, and you're boring. And this is boring. How can a Punisher book be boring? Well, we just cracked the code. Get David Propose to write it, because this sucks. This sucked, and I'm not even going to say I hate to say it, because I'm actually pissed off to say it, because don't think that he's a good writer in this whole deal where they just saddle him like, oh, you want to do some work? Do this crappy Punisher nobody will like. Though, we'll see. People give it 10 out of 10, say it's, oh man, it's so refreshing. But yeah, with all that, what would you give it?
I want to go lower than a 5. I do, but I really also want to say so I'm going to go 5.
But I'm going to give it a 4. 4 out of 10. Yeah, this is not good at all. It's basically like, what it is. They took a story already established that people liked and made it worse. There's no reason. If you're going to do this, there's no reason to not have Frank Castle in this book.
Just bring Frank Castle back.
What they should do is just leave the character be. Wait a couple years and just bring him back normal. I don't think this is going to end up making anybody happy that's a Punisher fan. You're a fudge, you 5, and I'm a 4. But that is that. We're going to go off now. Hopefully the next book's a little better. We're going to go to Uncanny Spider-Man with me and Jason. And here I am with Jason, and we are going to be doing the Uncanny Spider-Man. Once again, what up, Jason?
Hey, Jim, I don't know if I'm old enough to read this book. It's a little sexier than I expected.
It is a little sexy.
Kind of horny.
It is. Really. Well, there you go. Well, he's got a crit. I'm telling you, Silver Sable has something with this tale that's way beyond just normal interest. Like,
yeah, it really makes you think that we know something about Cy Spurrier we don't want to know, because he's so into this tale.
He just wants to go out and get tail, I think is what's going on. Yeah, but this is Uncanny Spider-Man number 3, written by Cy Spurrier, art by Javier Pina, art colors by Matt Milla, and letters by VC Joe Caramagna. And I've enjoyed the first 2 issues. I even had some people were surprised that I ended up. I think I was surprised that I did enjoy it enough. But I like Kurt, and I like the idea of him just trying to have a good time. You can get the idea.
I think you liked the second one even better than I did, because I was looking for more X-Men content and wasn't getting it. Whereas this issue, I think the tables have been turned a little bit.
Oh, they're turned all right. It's like some evil plan of yours. You've turned the tables, because really my whole play of this issue is going to be, all right, this is more Jason's thing, because I have told people I'm not really reading all the X-Men stuff.
It even has Eternals stuff in here. I was not expecting Eternals content in this book.
Yeah, that's odd. Especially, I guess this week we have Thanos. There's a new number 1. Ooh. He was kind of embroiled with them as well. So maybe they're coming back like Alf and the Pogs. But we start off this deal, and you go right away, because I'm telling you, where I thought this was a fun book, we're following Kurt. You kind of get the idea that Kurt doesn't want to really deal with the big troubles that have happened recently. So he's playing Spider-Man. He's doing his deal. He's having some fun with it. In the meantime, he's trying to find Mystique, his mom, things like that. Like you said, though, this issue goes heavy on a lot of different things that I'm not really familiar with as much. So you just start out, and even the narration, I thought, got a little bit. I even applauded Cy Spurrier, because it didn't seem like a normal Cy Spurrier book at points. It was easy to follow. That's gone with me now. I ended up having a lot of problems even from the start.
It does have some heavy narration at the beginning, but it is from actual characters in the book, which I always appreciate more than just the omniscient external narrator.
Yeah.
You don't know who it is right away. It turns out to be Nimrod and the Vulture.
And it works out. I mean, once you get to Nimrod, he is a Nimrod, right? He ends up where that is that type of narration. It's something that if you're not into the X-Men stuff or whatever, and you just pop in, though, it did throw me for a loop right away. Mm-hmm. I ended up, once I saw Nimrod, I'm like, okay, that, like you said, it makes sense. I get it now. It's going. But you described the scene, because in this, it still has a little bit of fun, but the fun factor, I think, is really pulled down this issue.
Well, we know that Orcus has been using these kind of glowing red control what's-this-is to make characters do bad things so that Orcus can get PR victories over them. And in this place, they've gone huge. They've taken this excessively deviated deviant named Gap the Integument, kaiju size, giant, your Godzilla type size thing, and they're controlling him. And the plan is for their Sentinels to take out this deviant and have Orcus look good.
Yeah. It's basically like the fire company that, oh man, the one guy there, he's setting the fire so they could be the first ones there, and they do it. It's the firebug.
False flag, whatever you want to call it.
It works, and the thing is about it is, that happens. Like you said, there's a lot of instances, or at least movies and things like that, so I get it.
I gotta wonder, the Eternals should show up like 3 seconds into this, because their whole point is that they were created by the Celestials to correct excess deviation. So deviants are usually kind of wacky looking, but normal dudes. And at some unpredictable time, they're going to spring into excess deviation and turn into monsters and just start killing stuff. And then the Eternals are biologically programmed to have to kill
go and
them.
Take care of it. Yeah, and like you said, you're waiting for it. I even saw you in the Slack chat asking, like, what's up with the Eternals? Because they should be coming here, and I don't know that there must be a reason that they don't, but even so, they don't. And you end up where
Cy Spurrier didn't want to get into that whole thing. He just wanted some big, showy opening action piece. And so Kurt shows up and ruins things by destroying the control thing, the control gem, whatever that red flashing light is.
Which he has been trying to do. He tried to do it with Rhino. It's the thing that affected him. So
in a way, he's setting this deviant free, but again, it's going to walk two minutes down the road, and the Eternals are going to kill him because they can't exist in this excessively deviated state. They're going to get killed. It's just how it
works. For some reason, the Eternals can't. They're just going to go through New York City and rip it apart, maybe. But
yeah, it's not like, oh, I'm not being controlled. I'm a nice guy now. No, he's a ravening, monstrous beast. That's what happens. That's, it's a Jack Kirby thing. We even found out in Jason Aaron's Avengers, the very first arc of that, we learned all about how this excess deviation comes from that progenitor celestial goop way back then.
Yep, yeah. It is funny because when he does go, it is almost like, well, I'm going to take my big tentacle monster button. Get out of here. But yeah, that's not how it would work. But you do have Kurt. And he's still trying to be funny. And I get it. I mean, the idea where he's not exactly getting all the quips right, but it's kind of funny.
He's trying. You can tell, I'm sure we've all been there where you're kind of in a down mood, having a rough time, but you try to be ha-ha funny guy. And it comes through pretty well, I think, that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I thought that's good. And again, I say that because some people might read this. And I see a lot of people, and when I ended up even putting this on YouTube, me and you talking, a lot of people just don't want to read it. Or they don't want to enjoy it just because, they have this idea Kurt's taking over for Peter and this. And I'm like, no, it's kind of like a therapy type deal. And the reason why Peter is down with it, and Peter seems like he's down with it because he realizes that Kurt kind of needs it. He's not doing any harm. And really, what else is Kurt going to, he doesn't want him to get, caught by a sentinel and stuff like that as well.
He wants to be a friendly neighborhood kind of superhero, right? And so Spider-Man, there it goes. He doesn't want to go to the cosmic world-saving, world-changing stuff. He's had enough of that. He's kind of worn down by that, but he still wants to be a good guy, wants to be a superhero, just on a smaller scale.
And it's funny, too, because even when me and you started this Zeb Wells Spider-Man run, when we ended up having that deal, and yeah, in the background it was, hey, everybody hates Peter, everything's going. Remember, we actually thought that it was kind of a fun play that was at the beginning, that when he became Spider-Man, he enjoyed, that was his, all right, let's get the weight of the world off and I'm going to have fun as Spider-Man. And we kind of saw, and that's kind of what Kurt's doing. He just wants to be fun. And if you want to have fun, Spider-Man's probably the best version of a hero that you can try to be. He's not trying to take over anything. It's just kind of a wacky thing he's doing. But yeah, but then we go back and again, you go through because it's Nimrod and Vulture. It's heavy here and it lost me a bit, I have to admit.
So yeah, Toombs, the Vulture, is working for Orcus. And this thing with the controlled people, whatever he calls them, the stuff with the control collars on, they're just kind of a temporary thing because what he's really working on are his hounds. And hounds is a loaded term in X-Men world. They originally appeared in the Futures Past. What was that?
Yeah. Days of
Future Past. So it's mutants that have been brainwashed to hunt down other mutants. That's the basic meaning of them. And what he's got here is he's got this secret person that Nimrod brought in for Toombs to use to build his hounds. And it turns out at the end that this is Warlock. And this is a big thing in X-Men stuff and especially in Cy Spurrier's series of books because Nimrod had Nimrod killed Warlock. Really, Nimrod poisoned Warlock or took him over and somebody else had to kill him. So we all thought that Warlock's been dead. And Warlock is this phalanx techno-organic creature who's super buddy-buddy with Doug Ramsey, who is Cypher.
Yeah, it's so funny, too, because, again, I remember when Warlock showed up at points, but when we get to the end of here and when it is revealed it's Warlock, you're there holy crap. You might have even went and told Ruben, oh my God, we saw Warlock in the Uncanny Spider-Man.
I hinted to Ruben in the X-Men.
So you have that because you think he's probably going to read it, right? So you didn't want to spoil it. But right. I'm reading it. I'm like, oh, cool, Warlock.
and they planted some seeds too, because if you look back at issue 1 of this series, we saw Feral, who was that other creature that Toombs had trapped. she had little techno-organic bits of stuff kind of attached to her. So he was hinting at this. It does make sense. Oh, yeah, he had Warlock.
It's funny. That's the reason, and it works the way I remember Warlock. Anytime he shows up, I'm like, oh, look at that. Oh, that techno, like he has that techno organic. So at the end, I'm like, oh crap, Warlock. But I didn't realize it was a non-wow moment for me, because I thought it was kind of cool that I actually knew the character and when he's affecting other people. But in the meantime, I didn't realize it was that big. But yeah, that's the whole thing. And I here's the other part. I know that there's going to be people out there who like Nimrod. I know that we're not really supposed to like Nimrod, and, pretty much mission accomplished, because I hate Nimrod. I can't stand him. But I can't, there's parts that I can't stand him because of the story, but also I just can't stand him. And this dialogue, again, is over the top a bit, but it works. And it has that deal, and these are characters that, Sicebur uses. But Vulture, I started feeling bad for. I was
Vulture?
I was having fun with him. In that, was it the first issue, I guess, where we're like, oh man, look at him, and he's given all these titles, and I'm like, oh, he's in big trouble. Like, he's getting, ripped apart and whatnot. But you also have Silver Sable, because that's the whole play. I love the idea that they're paying, you got that play here too that made me giggle. And Silver Sable, she doesn't necessarily say it, but they're being paid by the hour, it seems. If you end up getting Kurt within 2 hours, you're not going to get paid that much. But if you end up not getting them, and it's like, we're paying a lot of money to these people.
She is very clear that when she's off duty, she is off duty, right? There's no unpaid overtime for sure.
And I just love the idea, though, that it isn't that much of a priority for them to get, because then they stop getting paid. It was kind of a funny play, but we see she's shacking up with Kurt.
Kind of. They're out on a rooftop under the stars, completely buck naked, and yeah, this is a more explicit panel than I expected to see when I turned the page. My goodness gracious!
I mean, you actually see like booby almost. Like, this is really more risque than I thought. It's kind of in
the shadow, but it's like less shadow than like the Bat Dong was.
And you know what's funny about it? It's in the shadow, but you still end up having like motion lines. I'm like, I don't know about this. I'm a bit of a prude. So I looked at it, I'm like, okay. But it is kind of a funny, almost like a Batman-esque deal, too, with Catwoman out there on the deal. But this is an extended scene, but I did like it. I like them talking about the stuff and about, when I'm off, and you got me off, baby. I mean, that's the whole play with this. But she is going to keep trying to get him in the business side of things, but they have pleasure.
Right. It's like that old cartoon where the fox and the hound are like punching out of their jobs, and once they're off duty, they can hang out and have a beer.
Yeah, they're just hanging, and they're hanging here, and talking about what this whole thing means, and it kind of jumps between the two. You have Silver Sable, hey, we're having fun. Oh, this is just fun for you? Well, yeah, we don't have that cross. Then they start singing songs.
They start singing a Lila Cheney song, which is, I didn't need that so much. Kurt says that she was torn in half at the gala. I don't remember seeing that, but a lot of people were torn in half at the gala, so maybe I missed it.
Yeah, so, yeah, and at the one point when you have someone, hey, what happened there? I haven't heard. And you have that imp again. He's like, ruh-roh, as if, and I didn't get it. I thought that I'd missed something, but as you're saying, I didn't really see that. But yeah, she's dead with her stupid songs, and you even get the lyrics printed out. I'm like, now you're going too far.
Yeah, it reads like who's that guy on the Jetsons? Jet Screamer. It reads like an eep op oop ork ah kind of song.
You say this, and the other day I'm on the DC podcast with my man Eric.
Yeah, I remember.
We got done, I think it was like the first section of books, and for some reason, I just started singing that song. Oh, I love it. And I'm telling you, I get that mixed up then with the Flintstones song that's very similar as well. That we were doing, and we were laughing at Jet Screamer because I looked it up and things. It's funny that you brought it up. But yeah, you end up reading this, and who's going to sit there and care? You know what I mean?
The X books, they feel like they have to have 2 data pages per issue, and this was a silly enough way to do it, but
it's okay.
Yeah, he seems to have spent like about 2 minutes on these lyrics. It was not a great lyric show. He's no Lennon McCartney, got to tell you that much.
No. And at points when at DC, when you have Etrigan and they have to have the rhyming, and sometimes they'll try to do it, and sometimes they're just like, they're not even caring. They go with it. But the whole play, again, is that Kurt and Silver Sable, when they're clocked out, they're going to do this stuff. But hey, I'm going to get you. I'm not going to, once I'm on the job, I'm going to try to get you. But then Kurt, he gets his pants on, thank God. And then he, bamps out. He goes off. And you had some, as the imp is talking to him about, different things throughout this issue, almost revealing more of what's happening. But he ends up going and bamfing out to get to Mystique, because Mystique is in trouble, being chased down by some hounds.
Well, he's decided, maybe now I should let her know that I'm actually her son. So we still don't know why he changed his mind, why he didn't do that last issue, but here he is. So he's going to let her know, and she runs past, and she seems, crazed again. She they took my baby. I'm here in the forest of Bavaria. So maybe she's just out of her mind, but no, she's really being chased by these hounds. So she's crazy, but she's not completely crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, she's running with a knife in one hand and a gun in the other, yelling about her baby, but she is legitimately, she realizes she's in trouble and she is getting chased there. And then you see the hounds. And even then when Kurt's like, what, who's chasing you? And then you have the deal with, the hounds, Kurt, the hounds of hell. And you see these switched up characters. And so we're going to play this deal that we see that people are being changed. And it gets even worse as we go, right?
Yeah, so it's Feral, who we saw being worked on in issue 1, and with her is Dagger, who we saw out in the open looking around for her buddy Cloak last issue. So she found something, but it wasn't what she was looking for.
Yeah, and it kind of made me sad, because I do like Dagger, and she, she was
doesn't have
looking
her scooter
for a
anymore.
buddy. No, the scooter's gone. I just thought, after Kurt left her, they just came and grabbed her and turned her. And again, at that point, I think that you more in the know and seeing that you like, oh crap, Warlock stuff is happening.
I didn't think about that when I saw it. Well, this first time, because we didn't know the Warlock reveal until the end. But in retrospect, you flip back and that makes total sense, because you see the little circuit board looking techno stuff on it.
Exactly, but you could have thought, because it's a good play by Salisbury, because we did see Feral being worked on, so it could have been something else. But once you see that it is Warlock, then it does make sense going back through it again. But the big play again was, oh man, I wonder where Cloak is. Well, we find out Cloak is turned as well. So
yeah, he got caught first, problems. And he was the one who caught Dagger. And it's weird because he's about to, I don't really understand his powers. He's about to catch Kurt and take him back, I think. But then there's a higher priority target, and that's Mystique. So Kurt only gets away because he goes to get Mystique instead, and then Kurt uses his Hope Sword to take down Cloak.
Yeah, and it was a crazy deal. I mean, like you said, he's about to get, Kurt. And then you go and they're like, oh no, well, this is it for Mystique. Mystique's going to get captured, and Kurt's going to be up. But Kurt does, double around, does a Yui, and ends up using the sword. But the thing is, he stops Cloak, and he's like, all right, well, this is done. I don't want you to do this. And then Mystique just walks over and shoots his head off, and they all freak out.
Just a plain old regular gun. Nothing mutant, nothing high-tech, just blammo right in the head. So we thought he's dead, but no, Mystique's on top of things. He's not finished. Come with me, weird Spider-Man person. We're going to hide in this garbage so the hounds can't smell us anymore.
Mm-hmm. It's like Terminator. Come with me if you want to live. And she does. She's like, we got to jump in this trash.
And then Cloak rises back up, goes back into his cloak form, and he says, oh, I can't smell anybody anymore, so I guess I'll smell you later.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because at that point you see, Kurt, though he was friendly with that, he doesn't really know Cloak's powers, the whole set here, because he's just yelling, you killed him, you killed him.
One thing I wonder, it's always been, as far as I know in the past, to be a hound, you have to be a mutant who's hunting mutants. Now, Cloak and Dagger have been mutants/non-mutants back and forth for decades, but for the past 10 plus years, they've been, Marvel says, nope, they are 100% not mutants. But now if they're hounds, is Marvel telling us actually they're mutants again now? I don't know. Maybe hounds got broadened out, or maybe something weird is going on with Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah, maybe it has been broadened out because it is tough when you're trying to use mutants to hunt mutants, but all the mutants are dead.
That the Sentinel at first thought that that Dagger was a mutant, checked her out, but I decided, not quite, false alarm. So she was on the edge already.
Yep, yes, we'll have to see how that is. But yeah, you have a bunch of mutants being grabbed and pulled around and things like this. It's pretty crazy, but you end up where Mystique and Kurt did escape by jumping in the trash. I'm surprised he didn't have like crap hanging off him or whatever. They just kind of get out.
Or stink lines or something.
Yeah. And so they're talking about, and again, you're seeing some things where the little Banff imp is talking about how Kurt's trying to just avoid stuff and not think of stuff. And hey, all this stuff where you were a monster at one point, all this stuff that you're trying to stop, but there's some craziness happening. And still with the point where Kurt doesn't understand why exactly the Sentinel didn't, track him when it came in, and there's mention of Legion might be one of the reasons.
Banff takes credit for it because of me. Nimrod says, he was hanging around with Legion, and Legion is this super powerful reality warper, son of Xavier, who's kind of off on another plane at the moment. So yeah, it's kind of strange. And the Banff also reminds Kurt, hey, you recognize that techno-organic-y stuff on those hounds, and we get a panel that has Warlock in it, showing, the end of Warlock, basically, at the end of Legion of X, issue number 10, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, at that bit, and they said, Supervisor Toombs has made Warlock into war paint, and then you end up where...
I do love seeing in the background Mystique seeing Kurt kind of freaking out, talking to his invisible friends, and she just fades back into bearded guy and just wanders off.
It's just like, all right.
I'm crazy, but this dude is crazy. I'm out of here.
Actually really felt like it was like, I don't like this guy. This guy's
fades into
the
bushes like Homer Simpson, yeah.
And one of the things in this, though, that the Banff imp feel that I like is, in this, it almost like I like this imaginary, as far as we know, in the head is like try to take credit for things. But I also get that idea. It's trying to make itself be more like, I'm the reason these things are happening, so you can't get rid of me. Like, it's one of those things that Kurt is using this in his mind and doing things, but it does not want to leave. It doesn't want the problems to really be solved, but also to prove, hey, I'm the one who did that. I'm the one who does this. I'm the one who's keeping them away, just to kind of stick around. I kind of like the little guy. I like that he's sassy. He yells at Kurt a lot. Kurt gets upset, even when the idea, like, yeah, you're going to tell your mom this. And I do like him, but overall, I said, though, this issue, and probably can tell, there are a lot of spots of this issue that I completely was lost, that I didn't know the big things going on or what this character has been doing, or even like a Warlock. I haven't seen Warlock in quite some time. I had no idea, and I assume that most of the mutants have had problems recently, and then Orcus, but I didn't know, that this guy, that guy, or whatnot.
At the end, we see Vultures all, warlocked up too, so he has like a suit of clothes basically made out of this techno-organic stuff, and he's caught these other 3 mutants. I don't recognize who they are. I'm sure some, really into the X-Men people would recognize, or maybe they're brand new character, but he's caught, and they're like, that's who the Hounds went to find after they hit in the garbage. So the Hounds are working, they just haven't found their main targets yet. And Vulture looks really scary here. Vulture goes back and forth between looking like a real badass and looking like a doddering old man. And here he's definitely much in the scary badass category.
Oh yeah, looks like he's like working out too. Once he puts that suit on, he's got some rip deal going. I think it's all suit though. I'd love he like takes off the suit. It's one of those muscle suits.
Right.
Like, really, did you have to go with that? Yeah, exactly. It's like you didn't have to do that. He's like, well, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. I want to look pretty sexy. But he does with the organic.
Fly better. Shut up.
Oh yeah. With the whole organic deal, even in the wings. Looks pretty badass. He does look more threatening than he has in quite some time in this whole play. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that he wants to get immortality and things like that. But yeah, everybody wants that. But what would you give this?
Yeah, I enjoyed this a lot. I think the art looks great. I loved all the connections to the past continuity because I'm reading all those books. So for me, that was like a bonus. So, some of it's a little more confused than it has to be. I do want to know more about what's going on with those Banffs. I do think that Kurt should have told his mom, hey, Mom, it's me. But at the end, I'm going to give this book, I'm going to give it the same thing that Kurt gave to Silver Sable. A solid 7.5, Jim.
Oh,
solid
my.
7.5.
You're talking his tail, Adam. Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to go 6.5.
6.5, that's fair.
What Kurt does when he is in, shrinkage, I'll say. He was in the jacuzzi. But yeah, end up where, again, that is only a point lower, is because I didn't know that some of these things were as big. Though I kind of recognize some of it, but not all of it.
This issue is not as standalone, self-contained as the first couple issues made it seem like it might be.
Yeah, and so with that too, Kurt pretty down the whole issue. Like, he was trying to have fun for that, like, couple panels, but a lot more was serious. But I did like the stuff with him and Silver Sable. And you're getting the stuff with Mystique where it's like that classic of a movie or whatever, where they're like, I have one thing to tell this person, and then they meet up and they don't say it, and then they get killed. Like, I'm like, come on, Kurt, just tell her, and this could solve a lot going on.
We know that there's this special X-Men Blue Origins coming up after the next issue, so nothing's really going to be revealed until then, which is a shame.
It is a shame, and it kind of gets to the play where you're like, oh man, like if you're not going to do it, then maybe avoid a lot of it, but you're going to do it in that special, so they're not going to reveal that sort of thing here. So with that, though, still 6.5. I still like it, and I do like the art. So you have that, and yeah, maybe it'll convince me eventually to get back on the X train. But I don't think that one's pulling into Quakertown anytime soon for me to jump on. But we'll see.
For folks who aren't following the X-Men, the whole Krakoan thing is going to wrap up about next June, it seems. So if you're hoping, you're waiting for the new continuity to start, whatever the Tom Brevoort X-Men are going to be, it'll happen sometime after June 2024. So it's on its way.
For me, it's more of I'm going to see creative teams and see what books and things like that. But once we get those sort of announced, maybe I'll get excited.
No hints at all about that yet. With lots and lots of books being announced, it seems every week we have another book announced for, telling the story of the end of Krakoa, but we don't know what's coming next.
Yeah. So we'll see. But with all that, reminding everybody that on this feed that you're listening to right now, you can go and listen to our X-Men show with Jason and Ruben talking through the X stuff. Ruben! Oh my God, Ruben. But everybody go check out Ruben and Jason on the Weird Dose of X on this deal, because they go through all of the books, or at least the ones they can take. So we will go now, and I believe now we're going to go to me and Gray, so it's just going to get longer. Me and Gray talking about a what if. And to end things off, I have my man Gray. What up, Gray?
Hey, Jim. How's it going?
Oh, lovely. We're here for What If. And have you been reading any of these What If darks?
I've read a couple. I can't remember exactly which ones because they didn't leave much of an impression, unfortunately.
No. Yeah. I read the Loki one that started out, so I got the same impression, like the idea, these aren't that great. And I think that it's that crazy deal. Like, what ifs, kind of cool. But you have big ones, you have big ideas, and these are things that maybe you could have conversations at a comic book store or online. Man, what if Rick Jones was the Hulk? Or what if you always want, like, what if this character ended up being like the Galactus's Herald? Things like wacky things like that. They're big things that you're like, oh, that'd be cool. I wonder what happens. Then you get into these, and this one in particular, the What If Dark Tomb of Dracula. I can barely find where the what if is. It just feels like a Blade story gone wrong at the end, but there's no real big what if. And even then, when you end up having these, in my mind, you do have like, what if Blade never got turned into a half vampire? What if this person ended up being Blade? This is just What If Dark Tomb of Dracula. And you jump in, and I don't know how many people are huge Tomb of Dracula fans and have read everything, but they do end up having Marv Wolfman, co-creator of Blade, doing this, and he wrote Tomb of Dracula, all these things going on. So I think that maybe he thinks at this point that a lot of people know what he's doing here, because me and you, unfortunately, we don't know too much about the Tomb of Dracula stuff. We love Blade, so we're here for Blade. And then when you get into it, though, I struggle to find the what if, and it just seems at the end is, hey, what if Blade ended up dying? I'm like, all right, well, we'll see. There's a little, like, somewhat twist, but it doesn't feel like a twist, but we'll see how this goes. It is What If Dark, The Tomb of Dracula, written by Marv Wolfman, David Cutler on pencils, inks by Scott Hanna, David Cutler, Victor Olazaba, and Liv Say. I don't know why we have that many inkers. Cutler's by Antonio Fabella, D. Conif, or Knif, and Edgar Delgado, VC's Travis Lanham on letters. Too many people you're paying for this thing. And again, it's pretty bad. It's non-offensive bad. You end up kind of scratching your head at the end. If you like Marv Wolfman and kind of give the idea of like, hey, I want to support him a little. Yeah, I like Marv Wolfman, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to read it and review it with you, is just because it was Marv Wolfman doing it.
Me too. I was excited for that, yeah, like you say, because it was him, Jim. And I've read a few of the old 70s run, the late 70s, early 80s, and they're really good. He did a really good run, didn't he, on Tomb of Dracula? It's one of the most popular ones, I think, from the 70s.
Yeah, and I ended up reading a couple. I haven't read all of Tomb of Dracula, but
No,
I've read,
neither.
Blade's First Deal, and I've read a couple issues, different ones that kind of get suggested to read, and they're pretty good. And so in this, I don't know if maybe it should, like, even the art, which it's okay. There's a point when Dracula and Blade both become bats, and it was hard to tell the difference between them. Also,
that made me go batty, that, I tell you. Really
at
did.
one point, do you think, because in my mind, it's a weird play, like, you ended up having the art, and then they stretched it a bit, because there's some panels, especially with Blade, where his face looks kind of like elongated, like horizontal. It was very odd.
Yes.
Things just kind of threw me off.
It's a bit all over the place at times, isn't it? It's not very consistent, and you were saying like there's a lot of inkers on that. Maybe they had to rush it, Jim.
Maybe that was it. Maybe they were trying to get this thing, and this guy did that while the other did that. I don't know, but in the whole play, it's kind of a house-style cartoon even deal, and I think that maybe it should have been more of a horror feel. Maybe just go full out into the horror, because the art wasn't very horrific in that way. It wasn't gritty. It didn't feel dark. Everything felt bright and just kind of a bit cartoony, and that kind of threw me off. But you end up starting out in this, and you have This Was Then, and you have Dracula. He's going to go and kill Harker. And he has kind of realized, okay, he's trapped. He's in this opera house. I can go get him. And then at the last second, he just kind of chucks him off the balcony, but he doesn't kill him. He then goes off to attack a woman, and then that woman ends up being protected by Frost, Deacon Frost, who isn't, a vampire yet, because then Dracula turns him for him to get the call that Blade's mom is giving birth. So he goes off, bites the mom, and thus we have Blade. So a lot of that is a little different as far as but not that much different. We get Blade. He's raring to go. Harker is crippled now. Dracula wonders what the heck's going on, because Dracula through this is kind of concerned. Why did I go off? Why didn't I take care of Harker completely? Why did I go there? And is that that's not really the what if, because it just changes things that ended up being the same things anyway. So when you get this, really, it ends up being a book where there might be some cool ideas. There's not enough room for him. So what Marv Wolfman's going to do is, in his head, I guess, let me show random scenes as we lead to the end that might have been cool, but they're only a little bit odd or a little bit different. But most people won't even know the difference, and most people will want to see some of the cooler things expanded, because the actual what if story isn't that great. So you get 27 years later jumps so that Blade's 27. So we can have him going, Dracula hears, oh man, this Harker guy, he has teamed up with a bunch of vampire hunters. This is bull crap. I got to take care of this. And so he goes to take care of it, but pretty much gets Blade first, runs into Blade. But Blade has his team here. This is what I want to see more of. You end up having Rachel Van Helsing. You have Blade. You have Frank Drake and Quincy Harker. Harker is in what looks like a military-based missile launching wheelchair. I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. Also, people don't know Frank Drake. He's a descendant of Dracula. So you have some cool things here.
Yeah,
And obviously, Rachel Van Helsing. And it's like, hey, we're going to take care of you, Dracula. And Dracula's like, oh, crap, this is too much for me, and leaves. So that when he leaves, he's like looking over London town and thinks, man, and you're getting a story here where there's a little play, like there's some interesting thing of maybe Dracula realizing, I don't know how this world works anymore with the kids and their TikToks and this and them. So and then he's trying to adjust. He has this weird play of maybe I don't understand how everything ticks now. I'm behind in the times. I got to get up to speed.
Is this, Jim, is this meant to be now, like this 27 years later? Do you think it's meant to be? The art throws me off. I'm not sure what, where we are, what decade, whereabouts. Time setting's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're right, because of the idea, you would think at a point, when he gets turned, like 27 years later would now be the 70s of the deal, but it looks like, I'm telling you, London looks very modern.
It does look modern. And then sometimes it looks old. It's weird. It's a weird
You
mix.
have one little weird play where you have a Toys R Us and they're kind of not around anymore. So does that give you a play? But to me, it looks modern. Right. But even so, it's, old school Dracula. He would even have problems, in any sort of deal. But he's trying to figure this out and then says, what I think I'll do is I will just send out my minions. I haven't fed these vampires and they'll just kill people. But there's no real rhyme or reason for these things.
There's no setup, is there? It just happens. And
you get the cool team, Helsing, Blade, Drake, Harker. That is kind of a part of a bunch of different teams. You end up Midnight Suns. You end up having the Night Stalkers. But this isn't quite the full deal and there's some mix and match. But you want to see more of that team.
I know. You do nothing with them. You set them up. It's like, oh, great, this team looks cool. And then nothing happens, does it? It's like just Blade and Dracula.
They're there. They're only in one other scene because where Blade goes, and again, I'm going to get everybody to attack everybody in London, and I'm going to get them. And then Blade shows up to be like, okay, I'm going to end up, taking care of that. It's holiday time. There's a lot of crowds, and you end up having the attack by these vampires, and then Blade shows up to stop it, but then gets bitten by Dracula. So there might be the what if.
This is the what if, isn't it? Yeah.
We're already halfway through, and we're already throwing things at everybody kind of to confuse them. But so the what if of Blade, could Blade be turned? Could he become full vampire? Well, he goes back to his apartment, and he ends up fighting his girlfriend Saf and turning her into a vampire. Dracula says, just as I commanded you. Blade says, no, I'm still doing on my own volition. I wanted to turn her so we could be together forever. Let's fight.
Bat as well, this bat fight, this made me laugh. I know not meant to be laughing, but it just looks stupid. The faces on these bats, it's like, okay, I think I can tell who they are now, but you were saying it's very bright, it's very colourful all the way through, and that spoils the atmosphere for me.
This idea of, hey, I'm going to do this thing, and writing the script might have sounded pretty cool. We'll have Dracula and Blade as back. It's very cartoony. It ends up looking like Furbies with wings.
It does, yeah.
At one point, you end up where Dracula's like, I'm going to take you down. I'll just kill you, because you end up where Dracula's, what happened? I thought I turned you. And then Blade's like, I'm only half vampire. Well, that's what you've always been. He goes, well, I'll kill you. Slices his throat. Blade, as the bat falls, and then just doesn't.
Then he's all right. He's calling Dracula, like
and then he's like calling, paging Dracula,
Bueller.
And so you end up even at that one panel when you look and he's falling. It's like you have to give a giggle when he's like, oh no, like I don't even know what's going on in that. So he ends up paging Dracula and then says, oh man, I'll get you later. And so then you go back and you see that team again, and this is the only other page with them, where they're like, I don't know, and you don't even get exactly what they're saying at first, but then you can kind of make, they think that he's turned full vampire.
Right.
And he tells them, no, I haven't, with the idea, listen, you tan, and vampires, they end up getting killed by the sun. I do neither, so I'm cool, right? They're like, yeah, whatever, and he has a plan.
I'm in control.
There's nothing to this, and then you go off, then Dracula goes back to Castle Dracula. He has his brides there.
He's in a bad mood, Jim. He's steaming, isn't he?
Yeah, he's mad, and he comes and he gets one of the ladies, and he's like, hey, get over here, bride. I want to know, why did I not kill Harker? Why did I go off and attack that rando lady? His poor bride who's been sitting on just a throne of skulls in Transylvania. How the heck does she know? She says, maybe she didn't please you, but I will. And that's the thing. These ladies are just like whatever Dracula says. If Dracula comes in and says,
I love you.
Yeah, they're sycophants, which he says, but that's what he set them up to be. When he comes in, these are the ladies where he's like, man, I don't think I'm a very good Dracula. No, man, you're the best Dracula. He's like, all right. They're the hype men or ladies. That's it. He's like, man, like Blade, he's pretty cool. I wish I was cool. You're cool, Dracula.
You're cooler than him.
He's like, all right, let's go. So he says, why? Now, in this place says, why did I go after that woman instead of Harker as I had planned? He was my enemy. She was nobody. This poor vampire lady has no clue what he's saying. Even what she responds doesn't make sense. Maybe she didn't please him. Well, it was a nobody. It pleased nothing. He ended up going and kill her. And he's like, you useless sycophant, cracks her neck. I'm like, really? Like, that's just what you get for being like the hype lady. You're just trying to be nice.
That's what loyalty gets you with Dracula.
That's what gets you with Dracula. So then Dracula's really mad. Like, hey, you're waiting for Dracula, like what he really, like in this, the what if to me then becomes like, man, I kind of like Blade because he talks crap to me and gives it to me real. He gives me the real talk. Like I want it to end with Dracula there. Blade comes in, turns the chair around, spins his hat and talks to the kids, talks to the Dracula like a real No, he's like, hey, all you minions, come on, let's gather. He's like going through the streets, just gathering up the vampires and says, all right, we're going to take care of Blade. Goes back to the castle, which now Blade has killed everybody in, and just Blade.
1 minute Dracula has an army of the undead, doesn't he? 1 minute he opens the door, next minute they're gone. They're all dead. They were behind him, weren't they?
Here's a funny play here. There's only one little panel you have to look at it because almost all of them are dead. The rest of them run. You see them behind Dracula, hightailing it out. I'm like,
I totally missed it.
Like Dracula controls them. They wouldn't run. Dracula would send them ahead. So Blade and Dracula go at it, and they start fighting, and here is the big twist. The idea where Dracula's fighting, and he says to Blade, guess what? Guess what, Blade? You're really turning into a full vampire. I can tell because look at the way you're fighting. I'm like, no, he's just
I'm making Dracula. You angry, aren't I?
Yeah, angry. But Blade, to me, isn't like, it's not like a Doctor Strange who's like always trying to be calm and he's like almost like a robot at times. Not giving Cumberbatch, any dissing there because he's a gem, but Blade's a guy who comes in angry. He's like, and he's got that action movie lines, right? The attitude. So when Dracula's like, I can tell, look at you, but he is kind of turning more vampiric. And then Blade gets mad. He kills Dracula for what I will have to remind everybody, the 8 millionth time. Dracula constantly dies and comes back. So,
Jim, just look at this panel as well. When he kills him, 1 minute Dracula's got his head. Next minute, he's got no head. And there's no, explanation for that.
And I think that the idea where to kill him, you're going to behead him, but it looks like he stabs him through the heart. But then they messed it up and thought that he beheaded him. It makes no sense. So then Blade throws his wooden blades aside and he calls Harker, do it. Do what I want. At this point, I kind of, and I'm a dummy. I figured out, okay, what's going to happen is he's going to kill himself because he doesn't want to become full vampire. He actually realized it before he set this up. And he's like, do it. Blow up Castle Dracula. All right. And they drop a firebomb on it and it goes up. Everybody burns inside. Blade dies. Dracula's already dead again, but he'll die. And then you end up where Harker and Drake and Rachel Van Helsing, they're watching it burn. And like, man, that was pretty crazy. And even then when he calls, he's like, hey, Harker, what up, Blade? Don't call me Blade. Call me Eric. And they have to correct each other when they're watching it burn. And like, well, Frank, Rachel, I think we're done. We should go. And then Rachel goes, sounds about right. And then it says, what if that were the end? I'm like, well, what if this was good? Because it wasn't. It was bad. The what ifs, they're so watered down now. I'm waiting for the what if Bruce Banner was lactose intolerant. Oh my, I want to see what happens there. There's not really that idea. Nobody, like this would be somebody rambling on at a comic store online like, hey, what if Dracula bit Blade? And then he went off and he thought that he wasn't going to turn, but then he turned him. And then at the end, Blade killed Dracula and then they bombed the castle. I'm like, what are you talking about? It sounds like Chris Farley interviewing Paul McCartney. Because at the end, he goes, that'd be awesome. That's all. It's nothing. It's still nothing, but it's also, it's kind of like, it's not anything that's going to get anybody pissed off. But if you.
No, you're right.
I said I wanted to do it because I like to support Marv Wolfman.
Yeah. I was looking forward to it, as I say, because, his name is on it.
But it's not very good. It's not very good. It's not going to wow people. I think there's 2 reviews, and there's like a 5 and a 6. like something like that. So it's not that we're missing.
No, it's not a terrible book, is it, Jim? It's not like, oh, this is really bad, it's badly written. It's just, it feels like they tried to put too much in. There weren't enough pages, or it was rushed. It gets very rushed at the end with the art, as you were saying.
Art and just the story just has to end. So there are some neat things that throw the what if away. I want to see that team. I want to end up maybe, updating some things with Dracula, have some fun with that.
That could have been cool, yeah.
Yeah, but this isn't great. So what would you give it?
I'm like those two scores you say on the comic book roundup. I'm between, so I'm going to give it a 5.5 because it's Marv Wolfman.
Yeah, I think I'll go 5.5 as well. And yeah, I like to support Marv Wolfman. I think that he seems like a really good guy as far as I know. Somebody will probably say, well, you didn't hear this. But as far as I can tell and what I've seen, he's a pretty decent guy. I'm glad that he gets to do some work. And Marvel has been doing things with some past creators that are pretty cool. Unfortunately, Peter David ended up having some medical problems.
Yeah, shout out to Peter David. Yeah.
I really like what Peter David was doing, and I hope to God that he can recover and get back to that stuff because it was really, really good. And this would have been neat. If this would have been something like, oh man, this is really great, maybe you could think, well, Marv Wolfman can go back to some of old stories and things like that and maybe give you some more, but he's not that great, unfortunately, or this isn't that great. So that is kind of the problem there. But thanks for joining me, Gray. Everybody, go to the show notes. There'll be a link to Gray's YouTube channel, Wakasashi's Tea House, where he reviews a bunch of issues, comics, and has some other things as well, movie and book reviews and all that sort of stuff. So once again, thank you for joining me, Gray.
Thanks, Jim.
And that is it. All right, and that's it for this week's show. I hope you all enjoyed listening to us go through the books that we did. Not a great week. I think that'll pick up next week, though. Before I go into what we'll be talking about next week, let me remind everybody that if you want to get more Weird Science stuff, if you want to end up getting a lot of exclusive podcasts and also help us out for everything we do here on this Marvel feed, if not also the DC feed and all our manga podcasts, please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Weird Science, where you can get a ton of exclusive shows. And I think that we are going to start next week with what books I end up talking about. 2 of these will be on a Patreon exclusive podcast spotlight. We'll have 2 of these books on the Patreon. The rest will be on the regular feed. You'll get used to the whole play of that. But here's the books that we'll be talking about. Immortal Thor #4, Daredevil #3, Superior Spider-Man #1, Spine-Tingling Spider-Man #2, Capwolf and the Howling Commandos #2, Blade #5, Ghost Rider #20, and Alien #1. So a couple #1s, a couple things just starting out, some cool stuff. And like I said, we'll be talking about most of those books here on the regular feed, but 2 of those books will be picked in a poll on the Patreon for a Patreon exclusive spotlight show. That'll probably come out Friday night is when that one will come out. So a day early. And just to let everybody know, for the most part, we also end up having this whole podcast come out a day or so early access on the Patreon. But that's it. Check the show notes for everything, including Gray from Wakasashi's Tea House, link to his YouTube channel. Go check him out. He's awesome. And that is that. So thanks, and I'll talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.